الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين بالقاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين. قال الله الحكيم في القرآن الكريم: وننزل من القرآن ما هو شفاء ورحمة للمؤمنين ولا يزيد الظالمين إلا خسارة. صدق الله العلي العظيم. The topic of this speech for a few minutes that inshallah first of all, I'm thankful that you share your time and give me this time, is a reminder, post-Ramadan reminder. Because after we finish the month of Ramadan is usually we see a bit of decay, a bit of loss of what we've been achieving in the Ramadan. Of course, Ramadan is special. Without a doubt, you cannot expect after Ramadan to be like Ramadan. We're different. Our iman is different. Our attitude is different. Our devotion, submission to Allah is different. When I had this conversation with people, if you remember, a few days, probably 2-3 days after Ramadan, it was a very, very extreme heat wave in Los Angeles. It was very, very hot for a couple of days. It went on all the way to 110, 115 in some areas. And people were saying, thank God that, Ramadan is over. If it wasn't Ramadan and we had this weather, it would have been very difficult. Alhamdulillah, Ramadan was very, most of the days were very cool, and there was a lot of cloudy days. They were not as difficult. But the reality is, when Ramadan comes, even if there are hot days, when you are in that mode, when you're in that spirit of fasting, you know that you have to do it. And for some reason, those who have that soul, who have that attitude, they do it. It's like, a fighter when they go to the ring. So okay, I'm in the fighting mode now, right? They're very kind, very respectful outside, but now it's a battle. And Ramadan is the battle with nafs. And for some reason, it's very, very special because Allah is in our corner. Allah said, I'm giving you the strength, I'm giving you so much reward, so much blessing, only for you to be in Ramadan. If you just show up for Ramadan, that's enough. And if you want to do more, there's a list of tasks that you can practice, rituals you can involve yourself with. But if you're just there, if you're just breathing in Ramadan, it's an act of worship, right? But the post-Ramadan is that what we gain from Ramadan. That should be a question we ask ourselves. What is the benefit of Ramadan for people who are in a post-Ramadan time? What is some of the messages, some of the legacies we can take? And I'm just to make a few points to inshallah as a reminder. I'm pretty sure you thought about them. You probably know what I'm going to say. It's not new piece of information, but it's just a reminder. And as a nature of Quran is that sometimes it's just about the reminder. This lecture is just a reminder. So the first benefit and the first message of Ramadan is that to understand after difficulty there will be ease, or with difficulty there is ease. As Quran said, "Inna ma'al usri yusra," or "Sayaj'alullah ba'da al-usri yusra." It's a verse of very clear. Allah said, understand, with difficulty there is ease, and there is after difficulty there will be ease. And this is one of the messages of Ramadan. For 30 days we're fasting, there's difficulty, but the day of Eid is a day that you see everybody show up. And it's interesting, I've noticed, not to judge anyone, but there are people who did not even probably show up for the night of Qadr or Ramadan at all, but for the day of Eid you see them in the day of Eid. For some reason it's a special day, everybody want to be part of it because it's the moment of yusr. After difficulty, the difficulty make the moment of ease more sweet. The reason Eid is so sweet and people enjoy Eid is because that the 30 days of struggle, now it's a time of seeing it blossoming, the fruitful moment of Ramadan. And that's the reason in the day of Eid we complete it with zakat, right? With charity. You do all that, the struggle. And now Allah say, when you're celebrating, you're breaking your fast, let's give some money. And we see it for everything else, a lot of people negotiate. But when it comes to fitriyah, for some reason, I don't see people negotiate as much. With that joy it comes, people are ready even to pay the fitriyah. They don't really mind. I said, okay, you have to pay $10 or $15. It's fine. I'm going to pay 15. Any moment other than that, probably people say, why? Tell me exactly what is the number. سَيَجْعَلُ اللَّهُ بَعْدَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. And it's interesting in Surah Baqarah, when Allah talks about month of Ramadan, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان وجعلت في and then the ayah continue all the way. It said, okay, the obligation on you to fast in the month of Ramadan. There's a month that Quran was revealed in this month. If you're traveling in this month or you're sick and ill, then you have to make it up another time. And then Allah said, after the revelation of that, you have to fast in Ramadan. Inna Allah yuridu bikum al-yusr wa la yuridu bikum al-usr. Allah intend for you, desires for you ease. Allah wants things to be easy. وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. Allah doesn't desire difficulty, hardship for you. And this is after Allah asking us to fast for 30 days. And you say, how is that even possible? You're telling me to stay away from water, from everything that is lawful and halal in the month of Ramadan, from dawn to sunset, right? In California, probably for how many hours? 16, 17 hours, right? And then you tell me Allah wants easy for me. If it was ease, why is not a week? Why is not just a couple of days? How is that ease? And I've heard this explanation, which I liked. And they said Allah wants ease for you is not that Allah does not want to put you in the difficult path or doesn't want to challenge you. Allah wants to make things easier for you. How to do it? With fasting. How is that possible? When somebody fasts in the month of Ramadan, one of our greatest challenge, one of the most difficult thing for us is what? Anybody knows? Not in Ramadan, in general. In general, what is the difficult thing for humanity? To stay away from haram. Right? Temptation. الَّذِي يُوَسْوِسُ fi sudur nas. It's difficult for us to stay away from haram. There is a sweetness of haram that people, for some reason, cannot quit. When it comes to ghaibat and backbiting and gossip, there is the joy for some individual that doesn't matter how many times you tell them to stop. It's like an addict who try to force them to stay away from whatever drug that they are hooked onto. It's difficult. It's the same thing when it comes to haram, actions, haram activities, haram food, haram relationships. It's difficult. With the amount of temptation also, with the amount of waswasa and waswas of shaitan and human beings who are directly and indirectly soldiers and companions of shaitan, it's difficult to stay away from haram. And Allah said, I'm going to take you to a boot camp for 1 month. We're going to a camp, it's like all the famous sports team you probably know. If I use a soccer metaphor, probably soccer fans are much more here than other sports. Before any major tournament, what do you do? What do you hear national teams do? Or even the famous clubs they do? They take their team for a preparation prior to the league, prior to the tournament. A camp. And that camp, they're going to exercise, they're going to train hard and to be ready for the tournament. You're familiar with it? So when you go to a tournament, it will be easier for them to compete. Let's say in a week, they have to have 2 games. In a matter of a month, they have to have multiple games if they want to be at the top of the position that they're looking for. Allah said we're going to go to that during Ramadan. Ramadan will be difficult, but once you're done with Ramadan, it will be easy for you to challenge haram. right? If I'm going to go and it's difficult to don't drink water, if you endure this hardship, it will be very easy after Ramadan to say no to alcoholic drinks. You said no to water. It was very difficult to don't drink water. So now it is easier for me to say no to haram drink. Inna Allah yuridu bikum al-yusr wa la yuridu bikum al-usr. Allah wants to make it easier for you, with training me and you, to make us sure, to help us to make sure that it is possible for us to say no to the haram, to say no to the unlawful. And that's the reason halal relationship, there is a ban on it. There's a blockage from the morning, from the morning prayers all the way to Maghrib. That even halal relationship is not permissible. So that after Ramadan, when it comes to a haram relationship, you're in charge. You went through that training, that difficult training of Ramadan, to be able to say and confront the challenges much easier. So that's lesson number one. With difficulty, there is ease. It's like everything else. With everything else, it is always difficult to start something. And that is the lesson number two. Lesson number two from Ramadan is that every challenge, every difficult task, it is the most difficult at the beginning. And the more and more you get used to it, the easier it will be. There are studies about, when it comes to self-development. There's a lot of books about self-help books, the people about motivational books to help you uplift yourself. And there's always a chapter on these books on habits. Good habits, bad habits, right? Wake up early in the morning, start doing your job at the early hours of the day. These are good habits. Exercising is a good habit. Reading a book, try to read a book at least once a week, or once a month, finish a book. One book per month. These are good habits. And even over there, they tell you the first thing is that to develop habits is always difficult at the beginning. That is not simple. And usually bad habits are easy to grow on us. They're not that difficult. We get used to bad habits as well. Example is cursing. People who have a foul mouth, they cannot control their words, is a habit. And you see that even they do their best to control and watch over what they say in a proper time, in a proper environment, but you see there's a moment that there's a slip, something, just get away from them. Something when it comes to bad sleeping habits, same thing. It's very easy to develop them, but they exist. But good habits are difficult. They're very, very difficult to implement, to make it happen. But once you start doing it and you pass the first stage, it gets easier. How is that in Ramadan? In Ramadan, I'm asking you, which week of Ramadan was the most difficult week? Which one? If you ask anyone, regular people, maybe some people have different challenges. In a regular circumstances, not people who probably, God forbid, got sick at the end of it or in the middle of it. In a regular circumstances, always the first week is the most difficult week. Why? Shaykh, Ramadan is great, but I wish I could have my coffee in the morning. Caffeine withdrawal, if people are smoking, cigarette and nicotine, is always the most difficult the first week. And if you're able to pass the first week, you're good. You don't see people who've been fasting for the first 10 days, they give up and suddenly say, I don't fast. Because it gets easier, the body start adapting. The body get used to it. It's not that difficult for the body to adapt. But it is the most difficult at the beginning. So it's the same thing we can take from outside Ramadan. If I want to start anything good after Ramadan, it's always important to stick to my program, to my plan, to my schedule, at least for the first few days or at least first few weeks. If I want to exercise, the most difficult days are the first couple of times. The first time you go to gym is fine. You just watch someone or you read some book. You have to go. Exercise is good for you. Sitting is the second killer, silent killer. It just, move you to go there and you're there. You exercise and you come home. What happened the next day? Usually if you exercise very intensely and you try to get the muscles for the first time? Sore muscles. You're going to be body ache and headache. And to go the second time is the most difficult time. To push yourself that one, that's difficult. The third, the fourth, and eventually after a couple of weeks it become a pattern. So we have to learn that from Ramadan. Any good habit, reciting Quran. I promise you the first couple of days you start reading it for the first few weeks, eventually it become part of the pattern of your day. So we have to be prepared for that. Any good habits, it get easier after time. The third lesson from Ramadan, recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Pishraf again. Another salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Alhamdulillah. Now they're treating the speaker very well. It used to be tap water. So I'm joking. It was not tap, it was just a cup. It was a joke. It's post-Ramadan joke. I tried to eventually get into it. Skip this part, please. Make sure delete this part, inshallah. Masjid al-Nabi, for all the speakers who come to Masjid al-Nabi in the future, provides with very good, purified mountain water. That's good enough? That's good. Alhamdulillah. So the third lesson we can also learn from Ramadan, which I think is an important one, is the benefit of fasting is one of it, is that to put priority on the submission to God over anything else. Because on the Ramadan there are conflicts. I want to fast and also I have to work. Right? I have to fast and I have to study. It's a night of Qadr, but the next time I have to go to work. And for some reason we get next day off, right? And I have to go for the night of Qadr. Let me plan ahead of time. I know from the beginning of Ramadan which night is the night of Qadr. I make sure inshallah be there for the night of Qadr. Or every day, regardless of how busy I am, I have to read Quran. It's Ramadan. So I give priority when it comes to submission. And after Ramadan, for some reason, people switch that priority. It's not that in dunya we don't have priority. We do. We have to work. We have to be active. We have responsibilities. And it's not like that every Muslim in Ramadan, they give up on other responsibilities. They still have those responsibilities. They still are a student. They still have a job. They still are a family member. But in Ramadan, we know everybody understand and everybody are in that mode that, okay, priority is first fasting, is Ramadan. Then everything is after. And after Ramadan, we can take that with us. If it's a moment of conflict, I'm going to pray as a praying time, and then I have to do something else too. If truly we gain something from Ramadan, it's like my prayers has to go first. Right? That should be something I gain from Ramadan. The same way in Ramadan, I did not let anything interfere with my fasting. I know even people said, okay, if you travel in Ramadan, it's not haram. But I've seen people who are so, alhamdulillah, devoted that they call me, is it if I travel this much or if I come back by this time, can I still make sure I'm fasting? It doesn't invalidate my fasting? Because they care. They want their fasting to be intact. They care that much. So we can make that to be a spirit after Ramadan. To give priority to what is the most important and then go to least important. And last lesson, inshallah, I wrap up with this, and I mention a hadith, inshallah, and finish with the hadith, is that what we can gain from Ramadan. 3 points. What was the first three we mentioned? Anyone? First was regarding ease and difficulty, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, with difficulty there is ease. With difficulty of Ramadan, there's come ease of being in charge of our action after Ramadan. Is a training session to help us spiritually fit to challenge difficulties and temptation that we have. What was the second one? Habits. At the beginning is always difficult. We learn that. We get used to that. To any other kind of habit, any good things that we want to start, it will be difficult at the beginning. What was the third one? MashaAllah. That was the last one. Prioritizing. That everything, as I said in Ramadan, we understand that first it comes to what is the command of Allah. When it comes to, for example, in Ramadan is fasting before anything else. After Ramadan, anything else is wajib. Anything that is an obligation, anything that we consider to be the command of God goes before anything else. If there's a moment of conflict, there's a lot of time there's no conflict. You can work and then do your prayers. There's no conflict. But there's going to be moments in life that there are conflicts. There's going to be moments. And that moment, recognizing the priority, is the wisdom we need to look into. And the fourth one, I think, inshallah, we can gain from Ramadan is a very important lesson from Ramadan, is to understand the importance of community. In Ramadan, we become much more united for some reason. We come together. We know it's highly recommended to invite people over for iftar. Saleh Rahim start, getting a very beautiful increase in occurrence. And when it comes to participating in our communities and our masajid, we see the increase of that. We see the spirit of community coming back. Why is that? Because we start thinking less about the stomach. You start getting more time for other stuff, right? The entire, in other weeks, we're always obsessed with so many other things, especially at the center of everything is this one, right? Okay, let's have a meeting after lunch, right? Or before lunch, or after breakfast, or before dinner. So it's like there's a center. It is important, but for some reason, it is something that is, the priority goes even more than even the prayer time. And community building, it is something we can gain from Ramadan. Caring for other people. We have tradition, if somebody helps somebody to break their fast with a single date, it will multiply the reward of their prayers by 40 times. So helping people is core of Ramadan. And then we come to finishing Ramadan. If somebody doesn't give zakat al-fitr, it's like they did not complete fasting. And we have in Surah A'la, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that first you have to do zakat. We have to give the purification of our wealth. We have to give the fitriyah first, then go to prayers. Right? That is the order. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. In Surah Shams, Allah said that purification of the wealth and the soul are hand in hand. If our wealth and money is not in the right place, it will be not a way for us to purify ourselves. So it is also a financial responsibility in Ramadan. We can gain and take it to after Ramadan to care for other people and our community. And one condition is to contribute, to give to our communities. And to make that happen, it is important to understand that message of Allah that always has been said, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. If we consider our community to be lower than us, that they are for some reason inferior to us, we will not be able ever to be part of a community. Ever. But if you look at them, as Quran said, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. What is the ikhwa? What is the brotherhood? It means you look at them as equals. When you say brothers or sisters, it means from one family, they're all the same. And when it said the true believers, they're ikhwa, means they're equals. Not one of them look at another and said, oh, he or she is less than me or lower than me. That the one who truly knows the different status is Allah. The best and most honored, dignified of you is the one with the most amount of piety. And I finish inshallah with the hadith, another salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The hadith is again regarding from Imam Sajjad alayhi salatu wassalam, regarding the last point that I mentioned regarding community and caring for other people. And in Ramadan we learn that. We learn how to contribute, how to help others. And it's good to think about poor people. It's important to think about poor people. But Ramadan is not only about poor people, it's about community, including vulnerable members of the community, which are the poor people. But Ramadan is what community means, even people who are not financially destitute or in need, but they need connection. We need connection. We need to be together. We need to be in touch with each other. Because without that connection gives us solace, peace. If there is no connection, loneliness does not provide peace. That's the reason in so many verses in Quran we see the importance of coming together. Monkery, ruhbaniya is being condemned in our religion. You needed some part of the time to be alone by yourself for reflection, but you have to then come back with people. Do your prayers in congregation in jama'ah, eat prayers in jama'ah, break your fast with others in groups. So it's care for other people in general. And I want you to understand this. Because I think in one of the issues of our time is that we lost the tolerance to tolerate people. Is either you think like me, you say what I want to say, want you to say, I hear what I want to hear. And if you're not saying what I want to hear, that's it. I'm not going to waste my time. I literally call it waste of time. We become very picky. That's the reason Saleh Rahim start losing its place. People don't connect even with their own relatives. Forget about the strangers. Why? Because they're losers. Or they're not, if you have a bit of prejudice, you call them lost or misguided or hypocrite. You know, when you're forced to sit with the companionship of something, you start getting attachment. I give you an example. So pets is very common in this society that we live in, and just globally is growing. People having pets, animal as companions. Why is that? Because usually there's one-sided relationship. You give, and the other side does not communicate, has no independent thought. Right? They're not going to say what they think. They're not going to be, arrogant, or they're not going to say something that you don't like. They're going to roll when you want them to roll. They're going to jump when you command them to jump, right? But instead we're getting attachment to them. You see people crying over the loss of their pet. People cry for their pets more than they cry for their sometimes relative. It is important to have compassion for animals. I'm not denouncing that. But why is that human connection is lost? Because you see, if somebody even have a parrot, they care for that parrot. Why? Because they spend a lot of time with each other. Just you be next to, even let's say a book, you start having attachment to a book, an object, because you spend a lot of time with it. With humanity, we need that connection. We need to be in the close proximity. We need to interact. And then when you do it, eventually care come with it. Then that tolerance come with it. And Ramadan, inshallah, we learn that I sit down next to somebody, maybe I don't like everything about them, but because I spend a lot of days with them, a lot of hours with them, start having that sense of care, that humanity is in need of it. The hadith is by Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. Imam says, in the day of judgment, everybody will be in fear, everybody will be in discomfort, but there are three groups of people who will be under the shade of Allah's mercy. So a day that there is no shade, there is no comfort, there is no moment of peace, three group of people, they are the one that they will be at peace. So who are these people? Let's recite the salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So Imam alayhi salam says this is the hadith itself. ثلاث من كن فيه من المؤمنين كان في كنف الله وأظله الله يوم القيامة في ظل عرشه. So he will be under the shade of Allah's throne. He will be protected from that great fear and great horror of the day of judgment. وآمنه من فزع اليوم الأكبر. And he will be at safety and protection from the frightening of the great day, which is the day of judgment. Number one, من أعطى الناس من نفسه ما هو سائلهم لنفسه. The first one is the one who gives A'ata is when you give. Ata is the simple form of giving. A'ata in Arabic is when you give a lot, is very often. So if somebody once in a while they give something, that is not a'ta. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. This a'ta, it refers to the greatness of what you give, the importance, what you're giving is important. It's not something extra, it's not the leftover. It is important. And also it shows a very common practice, often. We often give you this. So man a'tanas, the one who often, that is his or her habits, going back to Ramadan, right? The one that his habit or her habit is to give to people what he is asking for himself. So if somebody asks you for something, he doesn't mind sharing. He doesn't mind giving. The second one, وَرَجُلٌ لَمْ يَقْدِمْ يَدًا وَرَجُلًا حَتَّى يَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ فِي طَاعَةِ اللَّهِ قَدَمِهَا أو في معصيته. A person who does not move a muscle, and the word exactly is mentioned is does not move their hand or feet, does not move a muscle unless they think that if this action is in the accordance with obedience of Allah or is against disobedience of Allah. So they think about the outcome of their action. They don't just wing it, right? Some people, they do it and then whatever damage they caused, then they think, oh, I have to repent or I have to thank. So for them is literally doing the action without thinking first. So Imam said the one who will be at safety in the day of judgment are the people who thought about their action before they did something. Not one of those that Imam said they are the ignorant one, that they say something first, then they apologize. And the last group, Imam alayhi salam said, وَرَجُلٌ لَمْ يَعِبْ أَخَاهُ بِعَيْبٍ حَتَّى يَتْرُكَ ذَلِكَ الْعَيْبِ مِنْ نَفْسِهِ. The third category, that they will be saved from the punishment of Allah, from the great fear and frightening day of judgment, is the one who does not criticize his brother, and again, his or her equal, other people, unless that person get rid of that flaw, that shortcoming themselves completely first. So I don't criticize others. I don't point fingers, I do not make fun of people for anything. Unless my criticism is something about a flaw that I already eradicated myself. I don't have that flaw at all. If I don't, it's better not to criticize. It's better not to point out people's flaws. And Quran clearly said, لِمَ تَقُولُونَ مَا لَا تَفْعَلُونَ. Why you say something that you don't do? My brother, you have to forgive people. And said, okay, what about you? Can you forgive me first? So no, this is a different thing. So no, it's not different. You have to, you said about forgiveness. You forgive that person, I will forgive you. So no, it's not about that mistake. It's about the principle, right? That we are stubborn on that instance to justify my flaw. When it comes to that, inshallah, we will be one of these three categories that Imam Sajjad alayhi salam said. And it makes sense that these people will be under the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and will be safe and protected. May Allah give us, inshallah, tawfiq to be worthy enough to experience another Ramadan, another Ramadan of fasting and devotion. And may Allah grant us and bless us with mercy, forgiveness, rahmah and afiyah, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. قسمت قاطع لایو هم نرینین نه اصلا نرین این قسمتش خیلی قشنگ